This video, you're going to learn how to love yourself as a man, okay? Now, I know that a lot of people have a lot of different feelings around this topic, and there are a lot of trains of thought, schools of thought around this, and it absolutely can be very frustrating when we don't want to be like the woo-woo crowd, or we don't want to be a bunch of pansies. We don't want to be weak. We often associate love with Valentine's Day and the color pink or whatever, right? Or just crying all the time or being soft, something about that. I want you to, in order for this video to be of most use to you, then we have to dispel of these notions. We have to suspend our disbelief, and we have to be open to thinking about love in a completely different way and thinking about yourself as a completely different way. Like Wayne Dyer says, in order to manifest, your dreams, essentially, you have to be willing to get rid of your self-concept. Because while you watch this video, you have a lot of preconceived notions, all right? Ideas about how the world works, how love works, who you are, and what you deserve. So starting there, we have to get to start there in that, do you really even know what love is? Now, I ask that without being an asshole or without trying to be condescending in any kind of way. Do you really know what love is? Take a moment. Plato said the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the quality of questions that you ask yourself. So really take a moment and ask yourself, what is love? Not what love is to you, but what is love? What is your understanding of it? Now, I'm going to share mine right now, okay? My version of love is an unconditional acceptance of something or someone, and in the context of a relationship such as a marriage. So if you're watching this, that means that you are a married business owner with children, for example. It is taking on the needs of another person as your own. It is taking responsibility for meeting their needs, right? Not at the expense of yourself, and we'll get to that, but it is, I love you, as I see you, I hear you, I accept you exactly as you are, and I take your needs on as my own. One of the people that I look to when I think about how to love someone is Jesus Christ. Now, Jesus has basically become a meme at this point, right? If you're not of the Christian denomination, this isn't going to be about that. But you think about how he loved people. He told the truth to them. He gave of himself. And he accepted everyone for who they were in that very moment. Flaws, warts, diseases, and all. Right? Jesus is a wonderful example of what intimacy can really look like, because when you remove judgment between an interaction or between yourself and another person, what's left is the truth. What's left is we take these masks off, and then we get to see someone and we recognize ourselves in that person. And then what do we end up being able to have? We're able to have compassion for them, which is one of the hardest things to do in a marriage, because it is sometimes very hard to recognize ourselves in our partner because of our ego. Our ego is the projected self, right? It is what the Greeks called the small self. It's the version of us that believes that we are separate from one another, that we have to win, that there is not enough time, energy, resources out in the world, that we have to do, be, and have something outside of ourselves in order to feel like safe and secure and feel like we are in fact enough. Okay? It is that thing that separates us from God, essentially. And so back to the original point here, with with the way that Christ, with the way that Christ loved people, there was an unconditionality to it. You didn't end up owing him. And he also didn't have any inferiority complexes. You know what I'm saying? And with that came boldness. With it came, I'm willing to be honest with you regardless of what it is that you do. And he was honest with people. He told them, the truth. And he was willing to risk losing them, right? So when, so many people began to walk away from one of his teachings, he ends up looking over at, his disciples. And he's like, do you guys want to go too? I will be fine, because I accept and I love and I know who I am. Again, unconditional acceptance of yourself and others, of the imperfection in others, and the ability to recognize the divinity inside the other. There's that phrase, namaste. The divinity within me sees the divinity within you. It is the great equalizer. Love is the great equalizer that gets us all to look past the humanness of another person and get to see the energy, get to see the God within that person, get to see God within that person, love within that person, and accept them. And so with that knowledge, with that definition, and within that context, let me ask you, do you accept yourself? Do you accept yourself completely in this moment as you are? Do you accept the body that you have? Do you accept the bank account that you have? Do you accept the life that you have? Okay, the quality of your marriage, do you accept that? Do you accept yourself, warts and all of your mistakes? Or do you have preconceived notions about who you are? Are you holding on to the emotion and the mental narratives, the stories that we keep playing on loop inside of our heads based off of mistakes that we've made in the past? Did you craft an identity around the worst parts of you, or did you compartmentalize them and stuff them deep down, and then you don't emotionally engage with them, so then they end up stuck, these energetic pockets stuck inside of your body? You're not going to look at them, and we don't want to talk about them. It's taboo. We're trying to protect ourselves from our pain because we don't want to feel that pain, because we don't feel that we can accept ourselves for either having made that mistake or having something horrible happen to us. Are you with me? Starting with acceptance. You want to learn how to love yourself as a man? Let's get rid of all of the societal stigma. Let's get rid of boys don't cry. Let's get rid of you have to just suck it up and just move on. We have to learn how to just sit and be with ourselves. Can you be still? Can you sit down for 10 minutes and just be with yourself? Can you sit and be with yourself for an hour without having to beat yourself up for not getting anything done and not having to be productive, right? Because so many of us, we put on the weight of the world on our shoulders, and then what? And then we feel as though we cannot slow down and we can't stop. And if we were to stop, then what do we end up doing? We end up feeling guilty. You see how the mind can make you insane, and it can get you into these loops, right? It can get you to just keep doing and doing and doing and doing and doing. You don't do love, you be love. And if within the context and within the definition that we've created, a complete unconditional acceptance of self and other people, rooted in truth. Can you give yourself that? If the answer is no, that's where you start. Because you do not know what love is, and you do not know how to give it to yourself. And you think that here's the insidious part, brother. You think that you're giving it to other people, but people only love to the degree of self-love. So however you show up and love yourself is what your people are getting, is what your family and your wife is getting. That hurts. That's a harsh truth, but it's the truth. People love to the degree of their self-love. So if you have parts of you, pieces of your past, things inside of your closet, things in the shadow that you are ashamed of, that you're guilty of, that you do not want to face, mistakes that you've made, anger that you feel, honest, raw feelings and resentments that you have towards other people, judgments, activities, actions, right? We think about porn. We think about the affair. We think about cheating. We think about the money that we've hidden. We think about all the times that we've lied or have lost our cool, punched holes in the walls, cursed at our children, all of those things. Can you stand in the face of the internal pain that you have and accept it? Can you accept that it exists? Can you engage with it? And then can you take it a step further? Can you love the man, the boy, the teenager, all different variations and versions of yourself that did those things? Can you love those? Can you love your past self? Can you accept your past self as being human? If not, then you will end up projecting that onto those that you love. I had a client who was a perfectionist, right? And that was rooted in trauma. It was in, if he got it right and if he did everything perfectly, then his mom would approve of him, okay? And he never grew out of that. And so that became a very embedded pattern, became a very embedded core of his identity. And it's what helped him survive. It's what helped him make a lot of money. It's what helped him become a high performer in his company, right? But when he was taking his daughter to therapy, and he was filling out the paperwork, his daughter ended up, writing out, "I feel like I can never do right in the eyes of my father. I feel like he only demands perfection from me." Perfectionism. Because he never healed that little boy inside. He never tapped into that, and he never accepted himself for it. Or he never really accepted the mistakes that being a perfectionist led him to make. He unconsciously projected that onto the people that he loved most. And then it ended up affecting his team that he's the leader of. And so he holds himself to an impossible standard. And as a result, he can't accept himself and he can't have compassion for himself. Do you see where we're going with this? He cannot, or he could not accept that version of himself. And until he learned how to, he wasn't able to free his daughter from his projections, from that unconscious need to have everyone do perfectly and for himself to get it right. And if anyone falls short of that, then guess what? You don't get my approval. You don't get my acceptance. You don't get my love. That's where we begin. We begin by looking at all the parts of you that you have denied, that you have rejected, that you have suppressed, that you keep hidden from the world, bringing them out of the shadows into the light of awareness, and you can look at it. Open your heart to feeling it all, the mistakes, the pain, the shame, all of it. And then loving the person who did that. Loving the little boy who stole $20 from his mom's purse and then ended up getting beaten for it. Loving the 8-year-old who got molested. Being able to tell him that it was not his fault. Loving the version of you from last year who had all the weight in the world and then ended up punching a hole through the wall and scaring the crap out of his family. I've been there. I have done that. And I had to learn that I am not defined by my past. But I can use it as an avenue to engage with and love myself at a deeper level, to have acceptance for everything that I've done up until this very moment. And with that comes the freedom of removing your emotional baggage. You don't have to bring yesterday's problems into today. And you can start clean and be perfectly present with every one of your people that you love. But it starts there. It starts with the ability to accept yourself fully as you are, warts and all. And from there, you chip away. You start taking the things that are in our closet, the skeletons in there, all of these shadow patterns, experiences, beliefs, feelings, all these dark sides of us, accepting them, taking a step further, and then loving them, and loving the person who created them, because it was all a way of protecting yourself. It was your version of doing what you felt was right at the time, based on what you knew. Everyone is doing the best that they can, given their model of the world. And so, that is how we begin. To love ourselves as men and heal our hearts so that we can finally lead.